like to do is get started with a little backstory. We call it like street cred, right? So it share as much or as little as you'd like, kind of your backstory. If you want to go back to where you're born, you're raised, hard knocks, anything that you want to share, kind of where you, the journey that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Would be happy to. So I'm a Northeast Ohio boy. I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio. So for any of you that are football fans, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is right down the street from where I'm at currently. And yeah, this is where I was born and raised. Went to school out of state, but just a little bit of background on myself. A little bit more of an unconventional background. As a young kid, I got diagnosed with ADD and would like struggle with school, but there were certain things that I would really get excited about, be it sports or music or whatever it was at the time. And I'd be able to go 0 to 60 very quickly. And there was like this obsessive component to where like if I really commit to something, I commit super hard to that thing, whatever it is. But with school growing up, it was a real struggle for me. So kind of what I always imagined was if you get good grades in school, then you're going to do well in business. I found out later in life that that's actually not always the case. Obviously, there's a lot of people that get great grades in school and they crush it in business. And after I got out of college, I ended up becoming an entrepreneur right away and built a few multi-million-dollar wholesale agencies. I started developing confidence in myself in my early 20s. And by my mid-20s, I had a wholesale agency where I had 40 direct reports and a couple $1 million a year business. I then scaled a population health management company from 0 to $150 million a year in sales within 5 years. And that was actually my last venture. So I think that all of us kind of have times in their life where, you feel either insecure about yourself or go through difficulties or triumphs. And at the end of the day, you're either committed to a certain path or you're not committed to a certain path. For me, it was an absolute must for me to do great things in my life and make a meaningful impact in the world. And I think that at Society Brands, we're certainly on the way of doing that. And I've been able to do some really cool things in my career so far. So I think that all of us kind of have some our stories to tell. And there's certainly been harder stories than mine. But that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. It's so everybody always goes on and sees a lot of people talking about successes, right? People like Gary Vee and stuff like that. The good news is more and more people are starting to share failures, right? And making people realize that failure is part of the journey, right? I mean, if you're not failing, you're not learning what's going to work, what's not going to work. So yeah, I absolutely love that. There's always a little bit of adversity in everyone's story. I can't remember recently I was just reading, it was like everyone's going through a hard time, no matter what kind of shiny Instagram filter they're putting on their profile. They're always, there's something they're dealing with right now. I see a bunch of kids' photos in the background. I've got 3 of my own. That's, I call each one of those my side businesses, right? I mean, each one of those takes as much energy as a brand, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, it's everyone's going through some type of struggle. So I love that you share that you're open about that, because there's so many other people going through that kind of stuff. So I would love to know why you decided to start Society Brands and kind of how you came up with that idea.
Yeah, so it was at the end of 2020 when I've kind of always grew up in retail. I came from a retail family, so for really as long as I could remember, I worked in my family's retail businesses and kind of continued on from there. And at the end of 2020, I saw that our brick and mortar retail shops were shut down, and just various retail shops were shut down. And I asked myself a simple question: is there going to be more or less product sold online 10 years from now than what there is today? And I think the answer that I came up with was a smart one. I think that there's definitely going to be more products bought on e-commerce 10 years from now than what there is today. So I saw these other aggregators that I felt were doing an incredible service to the Amazon seller community and direct to consumer and just general e-commerce. And I thought it was interesting, but I thought, how could we do it differently? Because there's a lot of aggregators out there that if the founder wants to sell their business and then walk away, then there's a lot of great aggregators out there. But in that case, Society Brands would actually not be a good fit for those entrepreneurs. But as we kind of looked at it, where we felt that there was a gap in the marketplace is for all the sellers out there that aren't necessarily ready to walk away from their business yet, that are emotionally tied to their brand and really want to see it continue to keep on growing. They don't want to go and sit on a beach somewhere. And if you think of the typical e-commerce entrepreneur, you're not going to think of somebody that's generally, ready to retire anytime soon, right? After they sell their business, they're not going to sit on a beach for 40 years. So with Society Brands, what we're doing is we're kind of combining two different methodologies. One is an Amazon FBA mastermind. So you see all these incredible masterminds out there, and also what you're doing, Andy, just incredible way for sellers to connect and to be able to learn from each other. And there's that culture, that community, but you also have relationships that really last for a lifetime. So we're kind of combining that mastermind feel. But then also the second thing that we're combining is we are an aggregator. So we oftentimes say if an FBA mastermind and an aggregator were to have a baby, it would equal Society Brands, because we're building a culture, a community, an ecosystem or a society of entrepreneurs that stay on board with their brand post acquisition. But we are very much offering liquidity, and we're acquiring 100% of the business. I think what's unique about us is the fact that we don't only offer cash at closing, we also offer equity in the Society Brands Topco. So I think that is a really, really expensive deal term for us, but it's a lucrative deal term for the seller because we are an earlier stage aggregator. We raised a little bit north of $200 million, but this is the direction that we're going. And we're going to build this to a multi-billion-dollar company over the next several years, and we'll likely have some sort of IPO or liquidity event within the next several years as well. So what we decided to do was offer sellers cash, but also roll over equity in Society Brands. So as we grow, they can enjoy a second exit. So we had this strategy, and we started talking to sellers about it. I first had to get a team in place. I'm really fortunate with an incredible team. Sean Doherty is our Chief Operating Officer. She was the founder of a tech company by the name of Mophie. And Mophie is essentially a battery pack for your phone. So you'd be charging your phone while you're walking through the airport or through the mall. And she sold over $1 billion of products on e-commerce through her Mophie business. But she also sold in 130 different countries and 30,000 different retail doors. So it's not just about Amazon or even Shopify. It's also really an omni-channel presence. So I got connected with Sean through actually my uncle. My uncle introduced me to Sean, and Johnny is on our board and also a co-founder in the business as well. And Sean basically came on board as our COO. We have several other team members as well. My brother Justin is our president. He has incredible M&A expertise. He did a roll-up in the PEO or payroll processing space, acquired several different companies and about 26 transactions within 2.5 years. So he ended up coming on board as our company president. I'm the CEO. And then we have several other incredible team members. So we kind of gathered our team together and we really said, what are if being an aggregator is a puzzle, what are those pieces of the puzzle that you need to essentially fill? Supply chain, logistics, operations, marketing. We acquired a brand management agency, OmniX. That was our very first acquisition, was essentially acquiring an agency. The reason why we did that is because we wanted to have the human capital in place. So post-acquisition, we can scale these brands that we're acquiring. So we built out the team, and then we started talking to sellers about our model. And it was overwhelming last year how many sellers really resonated with our model. And that's what we did first and got some interest there. And then we ended up raising our capital second. So it was actually backwards in comparison to maybe how other aggregators do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like your model's a little backwards too, in a good way though. So almost like a reverse incubator, right? It's kind of like that's kind of how I'm seeing it, is it's like this collective that that's the business is already built, but then you're bringing them into this little kind of group and then all growing together. And then also giving a an incentive in terms of retaining ownership. My wife's a real estate agent for a company called EXP, and they've got a really cool model where, you know, every time my wife sells a house, she gets stock at a discounted rate. So there's buy-in there, right? So it's kind of that similar type of model where, you know, a lot of people when they build their brands, like you know, like you were saying, they're connected to it. That's their baby. You know, they have a really hard time giving that up, and it's pretty awesome that they're able to watch their business grow, but also, you know, still have some skin in the game.
Yeah, it's just a, I agree with you, Andy. And just to kind of put that in real life scenario for a second, a friend of mine actually sold his insurance agency to a very similar roll up that Society Brands is doing, but they were doing in the financial services space. And they offered him a total deal value of $27 million. They paid him $20 million cash at close. $7 million was rollover equity into their parent company. Today, that $7 million is now worth $81 million. So if you look at the total deal value between the $20 million cash at close and the $80 million on the back end, collectively, it's $100 million. Never in a million years would this mid-sized to smaller insurance agency ever get a total value of $100 million, right? But I thought that it was so unique and it created a win-win scenario that a lot of aggregators offer these earnouts or stability payments, and we're not against that either. If a seller wants that, we certainly can. But the most lucrative deal term that an aggregator can offer is over equity into their parent company. And then also building a culture of community where we're going to have conferences with our sellers. We're going to have a lot of fun with our sellers too, because they're all staying on board for a certain period of time. It doesn't have to be forever. So anyway, it's a unique business model. Again, not going to be for everybody, but I know that it is right for a lot of sellers out there. So we're certainly excited to talk with those sellers.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're sort of in the mid tier of the aggregator space, where you're not picking up people who are brand new. You're picking up proven business models, and proven brands, but you're not going for the super high dollar brands. Am I kind of on track there?
Is as far as just general size of the brand we're looking
Right. In
for?
other words, what would be a target for your ideal acquisition?
Yeah, so I would say on the low end, $1 million or $2 million of revenue. And on the high end, at this point, I would say 20 to 30 million of revenue we would look at. So a pretty wide range. Over time, we could probably get bigger than that, but generally that's the range that it makes the most sense for us to look at currently.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a lot of companies kind of in this space right now. We've already seen some major shakeups. Kind of, do you think, you know, the business model, the training, kind of what are some other things that really differentiate your model, your brand, and why, you know, a seller might want to work with you guys?
So one thing that I think that some aggregators have struggled with, and I don't know for sure, right? But like I generally think that the moment that you have a brand that's been growing by 20% year over year, 30 or 40% year over year, and they're a $10 million revenue business or $1 million revenue business or whatever it is, and they're growing at a good trend line. The moment that you take that founder that has that tribal knowledge of their brand out of the equation, it creates some sort of instability inside the business. And to think that an aggregator like Society Brands could come in and do it better right off the bat than what that founder did, for us, we think that that is a risk that isn't necessarily worth taking for us personally. Maybe there's other aggregators that are doing great with that. But our thesis is let's have that founder stay on board. Let's offer them the best deal term in the market of rollover equity. And let's have them stay on board for a certain period of time. And if we do that, they're generally going to continue that same trend line of whatever the business was going to. And then we could add our level of expertise on top of that, but not replacing it. at least right away anyway, for as long as the founder is wanting to stay on board. So I think that is kind of the biggest thing. I mean, our brands that we've acquired so far are realizing really, really large growth numbers. But I think it comes down to two things. One is the founder staying on board. Number two is our company is adding value over and above that. So I think that those are a few things that are really important to our model that separates us. Yeah, it's been working out great so far.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess to me, it's genius in terms of there's so many intricacies, right? Every brand, every category of product, especially on Amazon, where they're changing rules all the time. They're throwing up roadblocks all the time. Where if you haven't kind of dealt with that exact situation, it can be really, really hard to kind of trudge through. And having that knowledge where oh, I've had this happen in the past where the product needs this specification, or the bots are loose and they've taken down the product again because of this. I know exactly how to fix this. I know you guys probably go through a lot of that kind of stuff with so many brands. But yeah, I think it's genius to kind of have that knowledge and bring it along with you. And like I said, have the skin in the game that, if the brand owner still feels that ownership, you're going to get a better product, no matter what, because, that it behooves them because, your success is their success. So I really like that. So I would love to hear, some of the brands that you've acquired. Maybe if you could give us kind of a brand story and how you grew the company. That would be, I think, really useful and awesome to share with the audience.
Yeah, great question. So we've acquired several brands so far. We're acquiring several more this month, and it's going to be a busy year for us for sure. But we're generally agnostic when it comes to category currently. We've got one in the toy space for ADD kids like myself. We have essentially a chair that helps kids with paying attention and focusing in school. So that's really interesting. We have a kilt business. We have screen protectors for cell phones, and in really several different categories. So we're generally agnostic when it comes to the category that we're currently looking at. And yeah, I mean, as far as like what our brands that we've acquired are seeing so far is about 83% year over year growth since we've acquired the brands. So we're seeing some really, really good results, but yeah, our M&A team's busy. We're looking at deals in comparison to, maybe some other aggregators are sitting on the sidelines right now. The benefit with Society Brands launching today is, COVID, we weren't buying brands, in 2020 and, just some difficulties associated with that. So we're hungry to look at more and more deals, and we're generally agnostic. I mean, anything over $1 million a year revenue, generally, we would be willing to take a look at. And as long as you have healthy profit margins, I think it's something that a seller could do to make their business more attractive is make sure you have good margins and make sure your business is growing. I know that sounds overly simplistic, but you'd be surprised to see how many deals we see that are listed with brokers that are seeing an opposite trend. And Society Brands anyway isn't really into turnaround investing where we're buying brands that are going backwards. We're liking to see brands that are, scaling in the right direction.
Awesome. So I would love to know kind of what is the path. So somebody approaches you, they say, hey, this looks really interesting to me. Kind of take me down the journey on kind of the steps that you guys would go through in order to bring that brand online.
Yes. So step one for us is obviously completing the acquisition. And then we have an onboarding process for that brand president. So, we call them our brand presidents, but it's really the founder stepping in as the role of the brand president. And the cool thing for our founders is right now, a lot of small business owners work in their business in comparison to working on their business. And we really elevate that founder to that president level where they're working on the business. They're working on the things that are the most important things for them to be working on. Because all the other stuff, like a lot of the other stuff anyway, we have teams that can help them with those items. So step one is bringing that founder on. We also like to do press releases for our founders that stay on board with us. We want the founders to feel like a rock star when they come on board with Society Brands. And it's not going to be my face on the press release. It's going to be that founder's face on the press release. And if we could do a local press release in their local area, we would love to do that. And we'd love to be able to honor the founder from that perspective. And we kind of take an approach of, we serve our brand presence, or we serve our founders. We're here to serve the founders and the brand presence of the company. So number one is bringing that brand president on board, or that founder on board. And then next is taking a look at the business on how they're doing on Amazon US. We are also open to direct consumer brands as well. We're looking at some Shopify sellers currently. And how are they doing on their mainstream channels? What are the things that we could do to optimize? And what we like to see is if there's low-hanging fruit to where we can come in and add value right away, we'll do that on the main channels that they're currently on. So generally, if I'm talking about an Amazon seller, it's are they maximizing Amazon US? And most likely not, right? Because it's a big marketplace. So let's maximize there. We generally go to low-hanging fruit when it comes to Amazon in other countries, Canada and UK and others. And then after that, it's are they getting sales on their direct consumer site? The benefit with us acquiring Amazon brands is normally they are selling 90% on Amazon. And it's oftentimes because they don't really have the expertise on direct consumer. So Sean, through Mophie, she broke the Shopify platform a few times on Black Fridays. And she sold over $1 billion on Shopify. So we have a lot of direct consumer experience as well. So I would say that generally the next phase is getting their Shopify store, their big commerce store up and running, optimize that to the best of our capabilities. And the last thing that I'd say is new product launches and product development. I think that what's unique with Society Brands is we very much have a strong product team in place. We have a very, very strong product development team in place where we're not just focused so much on the products that are already there, but new product development, we could really add a lot of value there too.
I love that. So kind of make sure that they're kind of going omni-channel there. And I assume you probably look at their ads, maybe tune those a bunch, product dev, and then probably help in maximizing sourcing costs, logistics, all those kinds of things kind of across the board, correct?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, we have a technology stack that we essentially plug the brands into, so we could optimize a lot of the things that are pretty manual lifts for them currently.
Awesome. So do you have kind of a target of the amount of brands that you're going to try to bring on this year?
So probably 12 to 15 this year, 12 to 15 next year, 12 to 15 the year after that. We're not looking to acquire hundreds of brands in a really short period of time. And I'm sure that there's other aggregators that model can certainly work for. We believe that we can get to really big numbers from a Society Brands perspective over 5 years. And, it's amazing what you can accomplish over 5 years. And especially just doing 12 to 15 acquisitions per year. We feel like that kind of helps us minimize the execution risk versus us trying to acquire a lot more than that per year. And at the end of the day, we still can get to big numbers. And the reason why we're a little bit more transparent about the numbers of us getting to is because the sellers are going to be part of that. And sellers that get acquired by Society Brands today are getting in early. Therefore, their rollover equity is at a lower valuation, right? And then over the next several years, when we're a multi-billion-dollar company, they'll be able to enjoy a second exit that will likely be a lot bigger than what the first exit was for them.
Love that. So, and I like the fact that, by kind of laser focusing on, a smaller amount of brands, that you guys get to be a little more choosy then too, and really help the health of the company overall, which, once again, behooves the founders, right? If you guys aren't healthy, they're not. So if you're growing, they are. So I like that. So being a little more picky in terms of who you're picking up. And once again, when you get the best of the best like that, because you guys are all the founders are, it sounds like, collaborating and kind of doing almost, like I said, a reverse incubator where you guys are kind of all working together to up each other's game. I think that's a really awesome model. So one of the things we like to kind of do as we wrap up here is, for me, I've been an entrepreneur almost my whole life. Had a lot of failures, had some pretty decent hits. Nothing in the $150 million range there, Michael. You got me beat. But one of the things that, especially in my 40s now, that I've really started to realize, unfortunately a little late, is personal development is one of the most important things you can do, not only for your company, but just for your life overall in general. So anything that you've come across that's really helped you in terms of your business, your personal life, kind of your personal development, any books, podcasts, kind of any media that you really dug into and thought made a big impact in your life?
So, wow, what a great question. I would say that the most influential book that I've read is How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was a book like early in my career. I just realized when it comes to negotiations and working with people, if you look at somebody else's perspective, um, and if you're looking out for them in addition to yourself, then you actually end up finding a way to create something that's mutually beneficial. And you end up getting the points that you want oftentimes, because you're also caring about why they want certain things, right? So that is such an important thing when it comes to raising a family, as you know, Andy, influencing our kids to do the stuff that we want them to do, which is always difficult. But when it comes to marriage, relationships, having employees, right, and raising capital as we've done, it's just looking at it from the other person's lens to essentially um, find common ground. As far as what I do on a regular basis, I am constantly listening to podcasts, much like this, and YouTube videos. I watch a lot of leadership YouTube videos. And another thing that I do, personal development, is I go to church, and I'm a Christian. I read the Bible, and that's something that is personally, for me anyway, something that's important for me as well. So.
Love it. Yeah, one of my new favorite YouTube channels is Motivation Hub. They just did a 2021 compilation, and it's all the big names in terms of personal development and kind of upping your game. And I try to watch that like once a week. It's a 2 hour thing, so I don't always get to watch the entire chunk at the same time, but I'll kind of jump around and really dive in, because I think there's so much there to not only keep your mindset right, but keep your motivation up, keep your spirits up. Like you said, with 3 kids and navigating a business and a wife, and all the other things. We have an acre, almost 2 acres here. So the other day I was out mowing down the yard that's past my head at this point. So it's fitting all those things in, and being able to keep a steady flow and a good attitude. So I love all that. Michael, thank you so much for being on. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much to Society Brands for sponsoring this episode. We really appreciate that as well. And we're going to have you back, Michael, and kind of do a second part to this. So I'm excited to see kind of where you guys are at in the next few months here when we meet up again. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Andy. Looking forward to connecting soon.
All right. Take care, guys. And as usual, if you haven't done so yet, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends about this podcast. We really appreciate it, guys. And we'll see you next time on the Seller Roundtable.